There's a certain electricity in you, an inner charge that refuses to dim, no matter how many times life tries to switch off your light. You've always noticed that your path veers away from the safe and familiar, pulling you into spaces where few dare to wander. Maybe you felt like an outsider in rooms where you were expected to fit right in, or sensed a silent distance between your spirit and the expectations others try to press onto you. This difference is not a flaw, it's the very core of your gift. You weren't wired to echo what's already been said or to blend into a world afraid of change. That unfamiliar rhythm you march to? It's the soundtrack of transformation, and only those who are meant to lead revolutions ever hear it. Every time you've been questioned, doubted, or misunderstood, it was proof that your role is to awaken what others refuse to see. This is your moment to honor the rare frequency you carry, because the world quietly waits for someone with your courage to shape a new reality from the edges they fear to touch. Not everyone is given the kind of vision that notices what hides in plain sight. There are people who naturally sense the faint echoes that linger beneath polite conversation, the subtle signs of old pain that everyone else seems determined to pretend away. Existing just outside the center of expectation gives rise to a rare clarity, a capacity to recognize the seams where old wounds still ache, even when the surface appears calm. This unusual vantage point is more than just a side effect of not fitting in. It's an invitation to see the inner machinery of family patterns and hidden histories. While most are absorbed by the obvious, those who walk the edges become attuned to what truly shapes destinies beneath the surface. Having that distance from inherited rules creates a kind of internal freedom. From this place, cycles that quietly repeat for decades begin to stand out. Habits of silence, unspoken blame, or patterns of self-sabotage that pass quietly from one generation to the next. Many are so immersed in these invisible routines that they barely notice their own participation. But the outlier notices. It becomes possible to detect where affection has become conditional, where boundaries have faded, and where pain is recycled in subtle, everyday gestures. This isn't about rebellion for its own sake, but about holding the courage to name what others cannot bring themselves to see. There's a certain weight that comes with witnessing what others overlook. The one who sees is often called upon to act, not because they seek conflict, but because healing can't begin without acknowledgement. Addressing long-standing patterns is rarely celebrated at first. It can feel like wandering into a storm of misunderstanding, risking isolation in order to spark something healthier. Yet, this confrontation isn't rooted in anger. It's an act of deep compassion. To interrupt a cycle is to offer future generations the chance to inherit something better. Every time an old habit is challenged or a silence is broken, the script is changed for everyone who comes after. Transformation doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it's as quiet as changing a response, choosing understanding over retaliation, or simply refusing to carry an old grudge forward. In these moments, a different kind of leadership emerges, one that isn't about authority, but about vision. The outlier's journey becomes a blueprint for renewal, an unspoken permission for others to imagine a life that isn't dictated by what has always been. It is in these subtle acts of courage that the future quietly bends toward possibility. Ultimately, being the one who stands apart isn't just about personal liberation. It's a service, sometimes thankless, often misunderstood, that gives rise to the hope of something new. Every decision to address, to heal, or to change, no matter how small, plants a seed that can grow into something that will outlast a lifetime. While the world may never fully see the battles fought or the patterns broken, the ripple effects touch every branch of the family tree. This role, while daunting, is essential. The capacity to witness, to challenge, and to transform is both a burden and a gift, a rare combination that can shift the destiny of generations to come. Some people have an uncanny knack for spotting the hidden signals others would rather leave undetected. Instead of glossing over the uncomfortable, they gravitate toward the undercurrents, the unsaid, the overlooked, the tensions that hum beneath polite routines. By stepping into their own discomfort, they end up shining a spotlight on realities that might otherwise remain in shadow. Their life, with all its detours and unexpected turns, becomes a mirror held up to the larger systems around them, revealing fractures that quietly shape everyone's experience. Carrying this awareness isn't always a matter of choice. Often, it's born out of necessity, a response to being the only one who feels the pressure to name what nobody else will address. This sense of responsibility to acknowledge what's amiss often leads to difficult conversations, boundary-pushing questions, and actions that jolt the familiar out of complacency. Whether it's drawing attention to patterns that corrode relationships or challenging habits that drain collective energy, their presence disrupts the rhythm just enough to invite change. Sometimes, it's the most ordinary moments that spark the greatest transformations. The act of opening up about a taboo subject, suggesting new solutions, or even simply asking why things are done a certain way, these seemingly small moves can ignite a much-needed awakening. Even the gentle persistence to seek clarity where there is confusion, or to advocate for fairness in a place dominated by silence, becomes a catalyst for meaningful progress. Their efforts, while sometimes met with resistance or denial, open doors to dialogue that's been waiting far too long to happen. Navigating these uncharted waters calls for a rare kind of resilience. It means being willing to stand alone at first, to endure misunderstanding, and to keep moving forward even when the path feels lonely. Over time, however, what started as an uncomfortable disturbance often turns into a rallying point, a reason for others to examine, reflect, and participate in healing what's been ignored. In this way, the impact ripples outward, touching not only immediate circles but extending far beyond, inspiring new standards for honesty and accountability. Ultimately, the ability to raise awareness isn't about pointing out flaws for their own sake. It's a commitment to growth and possibility, an invitation for everyone involved to step into a wider horizon. The uncomfortable truths, once illuminated, lose their power to undermine from the shadows. In their place grows a culture that's more open, resilient, and ready to evolve, a culture transformed by the courage of one who dared to notice and act. In a world that often rewards imitation, those who refuse to dilute their essence become pioneers of something far more valuable: authenticity. Their existence quietly challenges the expectation to conform, sending a signal that genuine expression is not just possible, but necessary. When the crowd moves in unison, these rare individuals are the ones who turn toward their own rhythm, making space for self-honesty to take root even in the most unlikely places. Choosing to be real comes with its own risks. Sometimes it means walking through misunderstanding or enduring moments of isolation, yet this price is a small one compared to the freedom it unlocks. In settings where everyone else tries to camouflage difference, the willingness to stand out becomes a powerful testament to what's possible when fear of judgment no longer rules the day. Every act of sincerity, no matter how subtle, chips away at the walls of pretense that confine entire communities. What's remarkable is how these choices multiply. A single voice speaking truthfully, an unconventional approach to problem solving, or the refusal to downplay quirks, these actions create a chain reaction. Suddenly, others who have longed for permission to show their true colors find a reason to step forward. The space once filled by conformity slowly transforms into a playground for creativity, innovation, and self-acceptance. The original outlier is no longer alone. They have quietly opened the door for a broader spectrum of voices to enter. Over time, this dedication to living unmasked becomes a beacon for those searching for more. It's not about seeking attention, but about embodying a level of integrity that attracts respect and admiration. The rewards go beyond personal fulfillment. There's a communal impact, as new relationships and opportunities spring from the fertile ground of trust and transparency. This type of authenticity challenges others to reconsider what matters most, to measure success not by approval but by alignment with purpose. So the journey of the one who chooses to be authentic doesn't just shift their own life trajectory. It sets off a wave that can reshape the atmosphere wherever they go. the permission to be real becomes contagious. In time, entire cultures begin to evolve, trading old disguises for a shared commitment to honesty, growth, and human connection. What begins as a solitary act of courage becomes the foundation of a more vibrant, inclusive, and liberated community. Growth rarely happens in the warmth of comfort. More often, it's hammered out in the storms that test every edge of a person's spirit. For those who have walked a solitary path, the lessons come layered, each setback, every cold shoulder, every locked door carving new strength where there was only uncertainty before. Outsiders are not simply surviving hardship, they're being refined by it. Through each uphill struggle, unseen reserves of resilience are uncovered, and a deeper sense of self quietly emerges. It's not just about enduring difficult moments, but about being reshaped into someone capable of reaching places others can't even imagine. Hard seasons have a way of pushing people to confront questions most would rather avoid. The moments when nothing seems to work out, when belonging feels out of reach, these become invitations to search within for meaning and direction that resonate on a far deeper level. What starts as a string of defeats often leads to surprising discoveries. Fresh conviction, unshakable values, and a purpose that cannot be shaken by outside opinion. Over time, those lessons crystallize into wisdom that guides every future step, turning former weaknesses into quiet superpowers. Every scar tells a story, and the wisdom gained from those battles is never meant to be hoarded. With each insight earned through hardship, the outsider becomes a silent guide for others wandering through their own confusion. It's as if the lessons learned become lanterns in the darkness, lighting up the way for those just beginning to question the world around them. Transformation here is never just a personal victory. It radiates outward, touching the lives of those nearby, sometimes in ways too subtle to notice at first. What sets these journeys apart is the understanding that each obstacle is not a wall but a doorway. The very struggles that once seemed pointless are later revealed as stepping stones, preparing the path for others to follow. As confidence grows, the outsider's voice naturally becomes stronger, offering support, encouragement, and fresh perspective to anyone willing to listen. In this way, individual growth spirals into collective transformation, strengthening the fabric of entire communities. Being shaped by challenge is not about suffering for its own sake. It's about choosing to keep growing when it would be easier to give up. That decision, to turn pain into purpose, plants seeds that bloom in unexpected places. Over time, what was forged in isolation becomes a beacon, proving that resilience is contagious and that hope can be built from even the roughest foundations. The ones who never quite fit in often find themselves pulled toward ideas and movements that others have written off. There's a unique attraction to stories that have been pushed aside, causes that have fallen out of fashion, or hopes that have faded from popular memory. It's not defiance for the sake of rebellion. It's a deeper urge to find meaning where most have stopped looking. Unconventional thinkers and dreamers see value in overlooked corners, picking up pieces of possibility that others left behind. Their attention gravitates toward the impossible, not because it's easy, but because they can't ignore the potential hiding beneath the dust. Where most people follow the crowd, the outlier wonders what might be possible if the rules were rewritten, if old battles were fought again with new energy. Whether it's advocating for forgotten communities, breathing life into neglected ideas, or speaking up for the misunderstood, this calling often means standing alone in the early days, facing down skepticism and doubt. Embracing lost causes is never about seeking glory. It's about refusing to accept that certain things are beyond saving. That stubborn belief in redemption, of people, projects, or principles, becomes a kind of creative force, gathering others who quietly share the same longing for change. Soon, what started as a lonely pursuit grows into a chorus, as more voices join in to revive what once seemed hopeless. The outsider's conviction becomes the glue that binds a new movement, sparking action and awakening possibility in unlikely places. These campaigns are rarely met with instant applause. Obstacles crop up, the mainstream shrugs its shoulders, setbacks threaten to snuff out momentum. Still, the outsider's persistence becomes a rallying point, a quiet encouragement for others to step up and add their strength to the effort. Over time, overlooked causes are reimagined, their worth reconsidered, and a fresh wave of support surges where once there was only indifference. What truly matters is not the immediate result, but the refusal to let worthy dreams be buried by the passage of time. The act of championing the abandoned is a radical redefinition of what's valuable, and each step forward invites a broader reassessment of collective priorities. In breathing new life into forgotten battles, these visionaries remind everyone that nothing is truly lost as long as someone cares enough to try again. Adversity has a way of crafting remarkable strength in those who are called to walk outside the bounds of approval. Time spent on the edge, where belonging is never guaranteed, becomes an unexpected training ground for a different kind of power. The sting of being doubted, dismissed, or set apart acts less like a weight and more like resistance in a workout, gradually building an unshakable inner core. Every time a voice is ignored or an idea overlooked, a new layer of endurance forms quietly beneath the surface, invisible but deeply rooted. Moments that might break someone else become the very moments that shape a survivor into a leader. Rather than hardening the heart, these experiences teach a person how to remain open while still protecting what is most valuable inside. Through every test, be it a tough conversation, a missed opportunity, or another turn at being misunderstood, a hidden reserve of determination is discovered. This resilience doesn't arrive as a fixed trait. It's earned through repetition, in the practice of standing up again and again, no matter how many times the world tries to keep you seated. Over time, this fortitude is visible to others, even if it began in solitude. The quiet confidence of someone who's weathered countless storms becomes a source of encouragement for those still caught in the rain. Instead of leading from a place of dominance, real strength shows up as a willingness to rise and try again, no matter how difficult the climb. This attitude quietly shifts the atmosphere of any group, inspiring people to reconsider what's possible for themselves, simply by witnessing another person's journey. There's a unique sort of influence that comes from living through challenge and emerging stronger, not in spite of setbacks, but because of them. The courage to persist, to find hope when the odds are stacked high, becomes contagious. Others watching from the sidelines begin to believe that perhaps they, too, can overcome what stands in their way. This is how resilience moves from a personal asset to a communal legacy. One story at a time, one lesson passed quietly between souls. In the end, the ones shaped by exclusion and resistance become living proof that the greatest strengths are rarely inherited, they're forged. Their very presence is a reminder that even in the absence of applause, growth is happening, and in the absence of approval, purpose is being born. The journey may not have been chosen, but its gifts are undeniable. An inner strength that endures, and a legacy that encourages others to stand tall, no matter where they begin. Those who spend their days outside the warm center of acceptance often develop an extraordinary ability to understand what it means to feel invisible. Standing just beyond the reach of belonging, they pick up on the subtle cues of discomfort and isolation that others might never notice. These experiences become a kind of emotional blueprint, a map for navigating not only their own feelings but also the quiet struggles of those around them. In daily interactions, this heightened sensitivity emerges as a gentle awareness. While most might glide past the silences or overlooked faces in a room, the outsider senses the soft ache of someone left out, the hesitation in a voice that rarely speaks up. It isn't simply sympathy, but a deep recognition, a knowing born from first-hand experience. This empathy is not learned from books or taught by well-meaning advice. It is cultivated in the soil of personal hardship, watered by every moment spent on the outside looking in. This depth of feeling does not stay hidden. Acts of kindness, small gestures of inclusion, and words of reassurance ripple outward, often sparking shifts in the social fabric that others hadn't even realized were necessary. By reaching out to those on the margins, a new example is set, one that encourages a culture of welcome, compassion, and understanding. These subtle interventions can transform entire environments, replacing old patterns of exclusion with a shared sense of humanity. Through their journey, the outsider becomes not just a witness to pain but a bridge across it. The ability to connect with those who've been overlooked is a profound gift, one that heals not only individuals but the community at large. What begins as a private struggle becomes a public good, as empathy quietly weaves its way into every corner of group life, shifting the atmosphere from indifferent to inclusive. In this light, the outsider's path takes on new meaning. No longer simply about enduring the cold, it becomes about kindling warmth in places that need it most. The legacy of this deep empathy is enduring, creating networks of support, understanding, and hope wherever it's allowed to grow. This is the power of those who know what it means to be left out. They never let another person feel alone if they can help it, and in doing so, they teach the world a softer, truer kind of strength. The path less traveled isn't simply a test of endurance. It's a call to redefine what's possible. When the world places obstacles before those who refuse to shrink or blend in, every hurdle crossed becomes more than a personal milestone. It's an invitation for the entire community to question its limits. Instead of merely getting by, these pathfinders quietly design the blueprint for a new way of living, where each step away from convention carves space for progress. Visionaries who move against the current often find themselves carrying the torch for those waiting in the shadows. Whether it's reimagining solutions in the boardroom or interrupting cycles of silence at the kitchen table, the ability to imagine beyond today's boundaries becomes a wellspring of renewal. Courage, insight, and a stubborn hope become rallying points for anyone longing to build something better. Proof that true transformation is sparked not by comfort, but by conviction. The contribution of those who persist despite resistance is immeasurable. The willingness to stand alone, to challenge outdated customs or give voice to the overlooked, is what keeps any culture alive and evolving. The outsider's questions are often the first notes in a symphony of change, and the courage to refuse conformity unlocks doors for every future dreamer. Community becomes richer when it learns to recognize and honor the value of those who color outside the lines. Each story of divergence adds depth and nuance, reminding us that belonging isn't about sameness, but about the mosaic built from countless unique perspectives. In supporting and uplifting one another, especially those who walk with dust on their shoes from unbeaten paths, we gift ourselves a tapestry of innovation and compassion. So let your journey echo beyond your own experience. By speaking your truth and embracing your own contours, you become a living signal for others searching for permission to begin. The story that began as one of surviving can be retold as one of shaping, leading, and igniting new beginnings. Each insight hard-won, every triumph earned, becomes a lantern that brightens the road for the next wanderer. This is how change is born, not as a solitary cry in the night, but as the growing light of those brave enough to walk differently, inviting the world to expand right along with them.